I'm Amy Proal. I'm a microbiologist, and I'm the president of a nonprofit research organization that I founded with my partner, who's a neuroscientist. We study the role of infection, and that's bacterial infection, viral infection, fungal, parasite infection, and the contributions of those infections to chronic diseases. Those diseases range from all kinds of different conditions, including Alzheimer's disease. And we're increasingly interested in looking at how pathogens and their products, the proteins and metabolites expressed by different infectious agents, can alter the epigenetic environment, can hijack mitochondrial signaling, can do all actually drive many aging-associated processes. So part of what we're looking at is basically the non-human side of the environment that can contribute to age-associated changes, and basically also how we can measure those more correctly and potentially alter them or treat them to increase health span and promote longevity.
Do you think aging would look like in 5 years, given all the scientific progress we've made, also you will make?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that part of what we think is really important is that we have obviously our human genes that control a huge amount of how we respond to many factors. They control inflammation signaling. They control all kinds of associated longevity-based signaling. But then also, even starting in the womb, we inherit pathogens, including viruses, bacteria, even fungi, from our parents, and we're seeded across the course of a lifetime via close contact or all kinds of different exposures with other infections. And key to understanding that is a lot of those pathogens actually persist in our bodies over long periods of time in our tissue and in our nerves. For example, the herpes viruses, which over 90% of people have, are viruses that once we get them persist with us throughout life. And some of the key things that we now understand these viruses can do is, for example, even just Alzheimer's disease alone, their activity is increasingly implicated at the heart of some of the Alzheimer's disease processes. For example, there's several labs now studying how the amyloid plaque that accumulates in the Alzheimer's brain may actually form as part of the innate immune response in the brain to pathogens that get into brain tissue. In other words, it may serve a function and actually form to entrap pathogens. And that's part of why the Alzheimer's plaque forms. So it's really interesting research, especially because, for example, that plaque basically has been evolutionarily conserved over a long period of time. So for over 400 million years, almost 2/3 of vertebrate animals retain the ability to create amyloid plaque. So it suggests that otherwise, if it didn't have some kind of function or purpose, it would actually be weeded from people. And yet we still make it, again, possibly because it actually helps us respond to infection, which does increasingly place infections that can get into the brain, honestly, at the heart of some of the key processes of Alzheimer's disease or other forms of neurocognitive decline.
And where do you see the biggest challenges in aging science right now?
Yeah, I think we have to, accommodate understanding that people are not sterile, that we are, exactly like I was saying, that we carry a lot of viral, bacterial, or other fungal passengers in our body, and that all of these organisms hijack the activity of our mitochondria in order to gain substrates for their own replication or their own nutritional purposes. They also create proteins or metabolites that often can dock directly into the human pathways that control signaling associated with senescence or apoptosis or other parts of longevity. So we need to better understand, and I think a future of really having the biggest picture understanding of how and why people age is understanding that some of these infectious agents are part of the drivers of mitochondrial dysfunction, age-associated gene changes, and that there's a huge number of ways that we can contain that infectious activity. A huge number of different, whether it's antivirals, all kinds of other supplements and things that we can use that I think can become part of what people use as part of the things that they're using to prevent and extend health span and longevity. And I think if we do that, we're going to actually succeed greatly in being able to curb aging.
Yeah, amazing. I really impressed by, we are talking about the systems biology, but you also see with different, new perspective with inflammation world to all things are connected in that way, right?
Exactly.
So I love that.
Yep.
How you see the whole landscape of
Definitely.
longevity.
Exactly.
Yeah. What's one thing you wish more people understood about longevity?
Right. And again, it comes down to the fact that, you know, we have these single viral, bacterial, fungal, parasite infections that people accumulate in their tissue and nerves across the course of their lifetimes. And then we're all seeded with ecosystems of organisms, the microbiome, which are trillions of interacting organisms in our gut, in our mouth, increasingly understood to persist and control a lot of, for example, the creation of neurotransmitters or other things that are really important to regulating the human system. And so even to that point, there are at least as many microbial genomes in the human body as there are, you know, those human genes from our human genome. And so really, if we don't look at humans more as superorganisms that basically contain both pathogens and collective ecosystems of organisms, all of which are capable of driving inflammation under certain conditions, all of which impact our mitochondrial metabolism, all of which can really impact a lot of processes associated with aging, we won't get a complete picture of what's happening in the human body, and we won't be able to target as many tangible things as we can to be able to reverse aging. So I think the future will be understanding both the non-human and human contributions to aging processes.
Oh, wow. So insightful. Thank you for sharing.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank